there. What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. We're coming on to the last couple weeks of this season until we go to next season, season 4. So yeah, I can't believe it's that many seasons now, man. That's crazy.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
But as you see, I have my guest with me today. There's actually 2 guests. One is actually a ghost. I'm just kidding. And they're from a testing facility down in Sunland Park called Cristo, which is actually a very clever name. But thank you so much for joining me, Priscilla Smith and Dr. Laura Saucedo. I hope I said that correctly. Thank you both for joining me. We'll get into the episode right away. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
So I'm Priscilla Smith, president of Cristo Analytics down here in Sunland Park, New Mexico. We're down here right by the other dispensaries and in the little square where all of the cannabis action is happening. And I have my lab manager here, Dr. Laura Saucedo. She's off screen here, but she's joining us as well. She helps run the internal processes and procedures of the lab.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for both for joining me and for coming on the show and answering these questions and introducing yourselves, because y'all are a fairly new testing facility, correct?
Correct. We just opened this year.
Nice. Yeah. Well, welcome to the area. Where you guys are at, I actually coined and like to call it Little Dubai, just for the fact of the rapid growth of the area due to one industry.
Wow, that's a really good name.
Yeah, right. Because it did that just out of nowhere. It just grew up, and is what it is now. And I'm glad there's a testing facility down there, because southern New Mexico has suffered heavily from not having testing facilities in the south. And to be honest, during the medical days, we didn't have much of dispensaries down here either. So luckily that's changed with the rec stuff kicking in and everything. And before we continue on, I want to thank you, all my Twitch people. I don't know if people from Twitch have started showing up yet, but this episode we're going to start streaming on Twitch first, and then the next day release the episode like we usually do. Usually we record the episode, give you an edit, and then the next day drop it. Today we're going to be giving you a preview. You're getting it on Twitch right now, so head over to that. It's I think at twitch.tv/InvaderKush with 2 H's. So yeah, that's it there. So that'll be for next week for y'all. But anyway, we'll continue on with the episode. I just wanted to mention that real quick because that's something new that we're trying here. It should be fun if it gets going. But I don't see this first one being like too populated with people on there. So
well, it either works or it doesn't.
Right. Let's think about trying it. So were you ever? Or, I mean, excuse me. What's your background in cannabis? Did you start here as your first one, or do you have like a long line of it?
So this is our first venture into the industry. My family comes from other industries, and it's mainly a business-minded family, very entrepreneurial. So I went to business school and then got out of college, and me and my dad opened this as a entrepreneurial enterprise. Kind of what got us into it. We have not been in the cannabis industry before, but we definitely saw a need and look to fill that as quick as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And the testing facilities is one of those things where you want people kind of from outside from the cannabis industry to kind of help along, because you get that scientific part. Like we're not savvy to testing. It's fairly new to the industry, and actually here in New Mexico, it's really only been implemented since 2022. So it's really that's when they really started to force people to do it. Before that, it was kind of like, you're in the South, don't worry about it. There's a border check. So we weren't really testing that much. So now that they really are, it's still pretty new. And, I'm glad that we're getting that. And it's not just full of, just dudes guessing, you know what I mean? Or, not knowing what they're doing. So yeah, exactly. So, I appreciate y'all bringing that expertise to this industry. Everything good, Gino?
Yeah, looks like we're up.
Heck yeah, sounds good. But yeah, so Dr. Saucedo, so what's your background? Is it just in this, or what really brought you to cannabis?
So I actually work for another one of her father's ventures in biofuel, making biodiesel. and I do the compliance lab there. There's a lot of regulations and already established SOPs because we use the ASTM. And then they had a need at this lab, and it was a little bit more, was different. And I really am excited to join them in their new venture here.
It's definitely all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And, there's a lot of learning, and I've been in New Mexico's industry for like 12, 13 years, and I learn every day. And, I tell people that you should be looking out to learn. When I was in the Army, I went to interrogator school. One of my instructors gave me some really good tips. He said, the day you learn everything about this job is the day you die. And that kind of applies to like almost every job. You're going to learn everything about it, the day you die, but you should still always be learning. Once you learn everything, you're done with it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So-
Are you going to be using some of the stuff you learned on me? Is that what's happening?
Don't worry, the CIA was the ones who waterboarded, not us. No. We have regular conversations on the show and everything, and that's what I really like to do is keep it light, keep it fun. Really get to know the people behind the business and the brick and mortar. Like to make sure that people know, oh, okay, these are people just like me, because sometimes they have a misconception of who the people are in the industry and everything, and it kind of gets either misconstrued or the way this guy types sounds like he's an asshole, but maybe he's just reading it wrong. So it's great to hear from the people's mouth. And I only had one other interaction from y'all, was actually at the state capitol, and actually we'll get to talking on that a little bit later about the rules and stuff like that and how it went for you, and to get your perspective and everything because you were there. Because I can't just go off. Everyone can't just go off of my perspective, because I give my audience what I thought and what I saw. So it'd be great to hear from someone else. So it looks like we got someone in the Twitch stream right now. So thanks for joining me. That's great right
Big
there.
Bird Justin.
Big Bird Justin. So I think I know who that is. Justin, probably down in El Paso. So
really?
Yeah. Thanks for joining me, Howie. If you have any questions, man, shoot up. He's really good at questions, so he might come up with a couple for y'all that I haven't even thought of. But anyway, do both of y'all use cannabis, or what really was like the driver to like cannabis itself?
I do not. But I have family members that do for medical conditions, and I have seen firsthand how it can alleviate pain and calm people's nerves. I know there's a large market for veterans, which I'm very supportive of, those alternative ways to help them with PTSD, and any help that we can give them, that would be really something we should all be pushing for as Americans.
Yeah.
So I see the positive in the industry, and it's a growing industry, and there was just a shortage of labs, period. So we jumped in on that side, and we were very happy we did.
Nice.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I also do not do any cannabis. I did it when I was younger, when it was very not as potent, and now the very high potency, I just can't personally handle that. But
Sure.
I have a lot of friends and family who do it recreationally, and at least they don't have hangovers when they wake up, right? With
Right.
cannabis, so that's nice.
Yeah, and you're too hungry and stoned to do some violence, or go home and do violence. So
Yeah.
We're definitely supporters of the industry in every way.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought you had something else to say. But that's great. And that I just asked that just to get a little background on y'all, because who knows, you guys could have been huge cannabis people in the past or whatever, but you saw something that was needed to be here, and that was a testing facility. And yes, we needed one really bad, especially south of the border check, because north of the border check has like everything. South of the border check, we kind of get screwed. I'm from Alamogordo originally, and so I'm used to kind of just getting shat on by the north, when it comes to things, and just kind of being left out on a lot of things. And that's why I actually started this venture in the first place, is because I noticed that the veteran, because I'm a veteran myself, I was in the Army. And I noticed
Thank
that,
you for your service.
Well, thank you, ladies. Appreciate that. I noticed that there was a lack of representation for the veterans, and especially from the South. The South was like always left out. And I was like, hey, we're down here. I know I talk funny, but that doesn't mean you got to ignore me. I saw there was a need for it, and I was like, you know what, I found a group, and I've been rest is history, I guess. So, and one thing I did want to talk to y'all ladies about was, like the THC levels and stuff like that. And I really do want to get into, the business side of things and kind of get the history of it, what you guys are about, and, give people an idea, because some people may not know who you are. But I do want to talk about this THC thing, and like, who better to ask than people who are from the testing side of things when it comes to cannabis, because there's a big push from us to kind of get away from this whole sales from THC, and THC is a sales gimmick to start with. Like, so we are starting to see people kind of slowly, yeah, it's a long process, slowly get away from that and start to focus more on the experience, the flavors, the terpenes and the sulfurs, of course, like that. And so what are you kind of seeing from your front? Are you seeing that trend as well? And I guess, the doctor as well, she just said that the cannabis is a little too high, for which I can agree. It needs to come down a little bit, and to be honest, when that happens, you get a better product.
Yeah, so you're exactly right about THC being a driving factor for consumers. I think that it's starting with the consumers and then trickling down the industry. I'm not sure how everyone likes it this potent. As Dr. Laura was saying, it seems a little bit of an overkill for sure to us, but the consumers are the ones driving it. So I think when they come into dispensaries and are like, give me the highest THC you have, and that's what sells out first, the dispensaries are going to tell the growers, I need another 32% jar on my shelf. Who can give me that? They'll pay top dollar for it because consumers will pay top dollar for it. And it just is trickle down economics at its best. And focusing on the experience or on medical benefits or things like that may help move the market away from that. But you are correct in that is a real problem.
Yeah, and like Dr. Laura herself, maybe she would if it wasn't so high. And I've had better experiences with lower THC products than I have with higher THC products as is, unless I was just trying to, my knee hurts, so I'm taking this 200 milligram drink to get to sleep tonight, like a side of something like that, like if I'm really trying to get an experience. And to be honest, sometimes I am a little bit more medicated the way I want to be when I have less THC, a little more CBD in there, maybe some CBG, CBN, and then you have the terpenes and the sulfurs and stuff like that we're and we're discovering new compounds all the time with cannabis as is. Who knows what we're going to find next week? That could be beneficial that we're missing out with just pumping these 40 million % THC plants out, or whatever these people are trying to push these days. And to be honest, it feels like it kind of makes it weird in the industry, because you have these people that are wanting to pay for numbers. And I kind of feel that would hurt people who are trying to do it honestly. Like, have you seen like that as well too? Like people trying to coerce, to kind of break the rules.
Yeah, I definitely think that is a driving factor for some of these numbers. It's just the public's need for it. And so if that number doesn't really exist, we're going to create it, right? As I think a little bit what we're seeing happening. And you're exactly right on the money on that.
and Dr. Laura, are you starting to see a shift in anything with cannabis as well, with the testing numbers and everything, or what's coming into y'all at all? Or
I mean, we're still very new, but we do see maybe not a large shift, but we do see like a range between 20% and 30%, which I guess is normal for most people. 30 is really high. Sometimes you can just get those numbers because of how like the matrix, or how our percent recoveries work, or what our ranges are in percent recoveries, right? So they're still like within error of each other, even if they're not, even if that seems really high, sometimes that's just within the error of it.
Yes. I've had other people kind of confirm that too, like, sometimes it's this number, sometimes it's that, and we're still kind of figuring the testing thing out, to be honest, like what's the best way to test cannabis, and,
Yeah.
we're trying to figure that out. And, here's a question for y'all, what method do you guys use or do y'all use to test cannabis?
So we use a lot of different methods. We mostly try to use ones that are already established. California has some established methods that are already there that we could look at. Or even ASTM has some stuff. So does like just Agilent and ResTech themselves. Like they bring out methods of how to test them and they show like what the % recovery is. Since right now there really is no standardization, we just use one, that is good for that is both cost effective and is accurate and is precise, right? Those are the two things that we look for, is accuracy and precision above everything else. So whatever we will land on anything that shows that. And of course we do multiple validation and proficiency tests just to prove that we are still accurate and precise in our own methods. Sometimes, we find something that's better and we have to move towards that as well. But that has to do with,
No, go ahead.
well, that's just, that comes with how the state is running things too. So I don't know. That's my statement.
No worries. You ladies are doing great, by the way. So my secondary question to that is, do you feel that maybe some standardization would fix a lot of the issues that we have with testing in just nationwide, really?
Absolutely. I feel like that 100%. If some standardization occurred and everyone could agree on certain factors in the methods that can really make or break some very critical points, I think we could all stop the lab shopping aspect for sure this state.
Thank you
It
for
remains to
mentioning
be
that, by the way.
seen. The only factor for lab shopping would be price at that point, or, personal opinions. But if we could all test the same way and there was no variation, no drastic variation, I really think it would help the entire state settle down into a little more methodical range of products. So we maybe would weed out some of these instances where people are able to get these radical THC numbers and get them passed. And that's coming from a C of A. That number's coming from a C of A somewhere, and everyone knows it. So that we're looking, that's a futuristic goal. I think the state as well is to hopefully standardize some methods, at least some of them, maybe some of the important ones.
Yeah.
And reproducibility.
Oh, go ahead.
And increase reproducibility between labs. So if one lab is getting 28%, the other lab should get within an error. We don't even know what within an error means because the labs are not, the methods are not the same. So that hasn't been actually tested, right? Is an error 1%? Is it with an error 2%? Is with an error, like so on and so forth? Like what is it? We don't know because the methods are not the same. They're too drastically different for us to be able to compare apples to apples.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good point.
And I just had a question about those standards that you guys are going through, or that everybody would like to get to. Do you think those are being driven more by the consumer or the states or even the growers as far as what those standards would be or what they're looking for?
Standardization of methods?
Yeah.
Scientific.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be scientific standardization.
No arbitrary numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially.
What are they asking for?
So-
What are they saying that?
There would be basically a method is a document that says how to do it from beginning to end, and basically there's no room for deviating from that path. Is plus standardization of it.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
a lot of things too affect this, like matrix effect. So because this is still such a new industry, and it doesn't seem like a lot of research has been put into, at least by states or by governments, about what, like, how matrices affect each of these tests, right? Then you just get, I don't even know how to explain this very simply. You just get a lot of different results, or things that people aren't testing for or aren't looking for. Like, this is an error here. This is actually a matrix effect happening, or this is actually something that's happening that nobody's looking for because it's not asked for. It's not even thought of. Right. And so that's something that you have to look for and have documentation for it coming from a scientific place, not from growers who want you to test it this way so you can get the best numbers. But even something that came from growers, if everybody was doing the same thing, even if it was not accurate, at least it would be consistent, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there wouldn't be accuracy in it, but there would be precision in it, and even that would be better than what is happening now, I think.
Yeah, that was actually more of my question as to what you were actually testing for, as far as some of the people asking to test, like, are you testing to get results for terpenes or, CBD, GH, and all that other stuff like that, and not just the THC, because a lot of those different compounds could mean that. Yeah. So
Gino's new. I'm just kidding.
I don't partake myself, so I don't know anything. But
Oh,
my question was basically, because of all of those different compounds or anything else like that, are you being asked to test for some of those things, or some of those standards being asked by the growers or the states or anything else to go ahead and test for that?
I would say, yeah, they obviously want the best number. So if that means THC cells, and we already covered that subject, definitely no one wants a failure micro or pesticides. But at the end of the day, I always tell everyone, the machines generate the results based on our proven methods that have been passed by the state and passed by PTs as well. So we have double verification that they work. And then also, the machine generates the result directly into the CBA. There's no way for us to modify that number, and that's where your results are coming from. So it's out of my hands what the results are, and that our customers understand that, and that's what they want. So they test for this.
so in case of like the analytes that we test, so there's two types. There's like the cannabinoids, and then there's the terpenes, and they're different from each other. And the cannabinoids are by the state. The state tells us what to do. Where they got that information from, did they get it from growers? Did they get it from medical? I don't know where they got that from, but the state tells us these are required. You must test for these. And then plus other ones that are also like offered by cannabis standard analyte standards, right? Like you can buy from the store some standards, and whatever is in them, you can also test for those cannabinoids. And then for the terpenes, those are not at all regulated by, or they are regulated by the states, but they're not asked for by the states. They don't say you must test for these analytes and terpenes. So those are just really what is offered on the market in terms of getting correct standards, right? So what you buy from Agilent or what you buy from Restech or anybody like that they have things from. And a lot of them also come from, right, other states. Some states say, we want to test for this. So when they offer you like those standards, Restech or Agilent offers you those standards, they're offering them in the name of the state. Like, oh, these are Oregon standards, or these are Washington standards, or wherever else, New York standards, right? That these are the things that those states want to test in terpenes. Did we both answer your questions? I don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was looking for, because then it comes down to more of a lack of standards when you're talking like each state would have something that they're looking for, or each of the different places they're going to be looking for different things, but not necessarily maybe the same things that the consumer is looking for.
Yeah.
I just say that because Chad goes off on terps all the time, and I'm going like, is that on the label? I don't know.
And Gino, thank you for that question, because sometimes I think so advanced that I don't think of certain simple questions. So thank you, ladies, for that answer.
That's
too,
what
as
I'm here
well.
for, Chad.
Yeah. So thank you for that. As easy as that question may have been, but thank you. There's certain listeners that don't even know that, and I'm sure would appreciate that answer. So thank you both for that. Because that's it's kind of important to know that what is your state testing for? Like, are they testing for all pesticides? No, New Mexico doesn't test for all pesticides, just certain pesticides. Are they testing for mold, mildew, other things like that? That's important to know.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's really state by state, case and all that. And maybe one day when a magical year happens, we'll get some federal standardization and some federal legalization going on. But we can only hope for now. We got a couple more people. Hey, what's going on? Oh, it's Pam DeBear, and then we got Tad Stallion. So thank you both. On Pam, he said hi to Pam.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a couple people in the stream. Hopefully they'll give you some questions, because that'd be kind of cool to get y'all some questions live and everything. But one thing I wanted to ask too, and this is something that I've had a question too, is analysis is only as good as the collection of the data. So what I'm getting at is the growers, in a futuristic world, when we have figured out standardization of the testing for the machinery and everything, what are we going to do about collecting the cannabis samples themselves? Because there's a lot of cherry picking out there going on, and we all know what's going on.
Yeah, so according to the state, which is the rules we follow, the labs will be going to collect, and there's going to be there is actually a process already written that they're going to refer us to at some point when they deem the market ready for us to start collecting. And our people will actually go take a sample of the batch according to their rules of how to do that, and bring it back to the labs to keep the cherry picking at a minimum.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't know what's happening. I've been around many of the growers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to take that one for the testing." I was like, "What do you mean you're going to take that one in particular for the testing? You're not supposed to do that. That's not very scientific, is it?" So yeah, I'm glad that hearing that, because I think on the hemp side here in New Mexico for a while, they had, I think, certain Department of Ag inspectors going to do it, and they would put it in an evidence bag, and then the farmer would take it to the testing facility. So that was one thing that I would hope they would at least implement on the cannabis side, but they didn't, which was kind of odd to me. I'm like, oh, just gonna let them do whatever, huh?
Yeah, right now we're under some self-sampling regs. So
yeah, hopefully
Can I just ask?
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
I just ask about this evidence bag thing? Was the evidence bag like blacked out? Was it clear? Was it red? Do you know anything about this evidence bag? That's wild.
Good question. So I had talked to one of the inspectors. I was a friend with one for a while. I haven't heard from her in a while. Hope she's doing well. But I believe it was just a clear evidence bag, like they use, for police or whatever. It was clear. I think it had red on it. She said, she just, sealed the top, and then gave it to the guy, and he took it off. So yeah, I think it was see-through.
Okay, so there goes your terpenes and cannabinoids there, huh?
Yes.
I think Dr. Laura is referring to that we would need a different kind of evidence bag.
See, this is why we need people that are scientifically minded, because I was thinking that myself when she mentioned that, and I was like, no, it was clear. But to be honest, while I was saying that, probably needs to be opaque.
Yeah.
And it needs to be at a good temperature, like all the good stuff and all that. So,
Exactly.
no, those are really good points that need to be brought up in the future. And I appreciate you all. And, I appreciate your advocacy in Santa Fe, to be honest, seeing you there, and you just got licensed, to be honest. And there's been businesses that have been in New Mexico for, over a decade now, and I didn't see them there. But yet, I saw the new kid on the block, and I was like, well, that's great. Like seeing someone who's ready to advocate right off the bat, that's good to hear, because, we've had people here for years who refuse to show up, and they're an hour away. You drove further than I did, and I drove 4 hours. So that's dedication, and to drive that far, because I did that same drive that morning, and that was not fun. But I've been doing it for over a decade, so I'm kind of used to it at this point, but it's still not fun.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, by the way.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we had a great time there, and it was great to meet you and meet other industry leaders, and really see the direction and vision everyone has for the industry as a whole. So it was a good time.
Yeah, and how did you, what did you think of the rules hearing, I guess I should say, since it was like your first one?
I thought the turnout at the hearing was great. I really thought everyone had very good points that they brought up. A lot of points intersected, and I was happy I included for sure on the batch size and minimum sample size. I've added to that myself. A lot of growers and dispensaries were talking about it as well, that those rules needed to be modified to make sense to everyone. So I was able to put in the lab's perspective on that as well, which aligned with some of what they were saying. And I think it helped the CCD to see us as like a collective instead of the growers don't like this. And it's like, well, okay, also we need some modifications if we can enforce their rules they're laying out. 60-gram sample size is unapproachable. We can't actually ask for that. So we need to help them to understand that as well. And I felt like the message was well received.
I did too, and it was a great turnout. I wish there was more people to be honest. I really wish they would have had to move venues because there was too many people, but maybe in the next one. But I really do think it was a decent turnout. Because I had found out, I think, a month before, and I did everything I could to sound the alarms to people and get people to know that this is happening. And I'm glad that we did. And and Todd Stevens did a great job. And Todd Stevens, that's one of my friends. Todd, the director of the CCD, he did a really good job. He even brought out like chairs and everything for people like that. And that was, they don't ever do that. Is what I'm trying to say. Is that was the first time I've ever seen that happen at any rules hearing. Is one of the director out of anybody went and said, hey, I'm gonna grab more chairs himself. So that was really cool to see, and and hearing everybody's opinion and everything. And I wanted to hear it from someone else because, like I said, I told my audience before from my mouth, but I wanted to hear it from someone else too, what they thought, and especially someone new to the industry and to New Mexico, really. What they thought in the process and all that. So thank you. And maybe the next time we can get more people up there. And for some reason, it's always like us from the South are the ones that show up in groves and droves.
Yeah, definitely some strong people down here.
Yeah, definitely. We got a lot of voices and everything like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the business and everything. I know it's taken a little bit for us to get to here, but there's some other great conversations that we had in between. Where did the idea for the name come from? Because to be honest, it's very clever.
Well, thank you for that. Actually, we're below Mount Cristo Rey, which is the mountain here in Summerlin Park. Right. The right of the lab. We share it with Mexico, and it's really a landmark and a special place for a lot of people. People go on pilgrimages there from both countries, and so we wanted to, tip our hat to that national landmark in our backyard, as well as Cristo kind of sounds like crystal clear, so it's showing our accuracy. So Cristo, that's where the name Cristo Clear Analytics came from. That's where Summerlin Park natives.
That's great, and that's great to hear that you're using that cleverness to it, because some people are just like weed farm, and I'm like, okay, that's it.
Very
pretty direct.
Wonder what they do.
Well, they don't go in my backyard and pull weeds.
Does Cristo Clear Analytics sound like a lab to you, Chad?
The analytics part, yes. Crystal Clear,
Yes.
I would think would be like a water company.
Okay, yes. I can see that. I always include the analytics part, just to make sure.
Yeah, no. I think it's a clever name, especially for what y'all are doing, because that's a great clever name to use for that in that sense and everything.
Yeah.
But while we've been talking, I actually got a couple of questions. If y'all don't mind, taking some questions.
Oh, sure.
Awesome. So one of the questions I got is, do a lot of producers shop for labs? Is that something that you see quite a bit of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they do. They want to test you out and see what numbers they get. I wouldn't be surprised if they're sending part of the same batch to another lab to compare results, and that's well within their right. We have a free market. People have free will. They're able to do what they would like to do, and definitely I could see that being, while we don't have what Dr. Laura was saying as an all labs standardization to see how far in error we are of each other, that can help keep the labs in check.
Yeah.
That lab shopping, but also it's rewarding non-compliance
Got it.
to some extent.
Yeah.
When you see large amounts of, over 32% THC out on the shelf, it becomes a question of is that non-compliance actually being rewarded at that point because they went with the higher number. So that's definitely something everyone's aware of, but we're sticking in our lane. We got approved finally, and we want to do things legal and accurate and precise, and there's nothing that can move us off that. So
Awesome.
we're
And-
good with our market share.
Awesome. And the best thing to do is just be honest and do it your way. If someone gets mad, then there's someone else they can choose. Free market, like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's
so,
plenty for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And they can, if they want to take it up north, by all means.
Watch that checkpoint.
Right. And I got another question right here. It's from Big Bird again. Will they test products if a patient or rec user brings in product they bought, not grown themselves? So,
Absolutely.
oh, awesome. That's great to hear.
Absolutely. Yes. When we have done that already.
Cool. That's good to hear, because actually this guy asking, he lives in the area where you guys are, so he's probably asking for himself and not for a friend.
Yeah. Come stop by and check us out.
And I'd love to come check you guys out sometime if you don't mind. That'd be great to check out the
Yes,
facility.
absolutely. And while we're on the subject of the lab, is that okay if I mention our October test pricing special?
Please do, by all means.
Okay. So we're running an October test special on full panels. So $175 for flower and concentrates, and also transportation deal depending on if you have over 3 samples or not. So yeah, come check us out. We also have potency and terpenes and just everything we need.
Nice. I appreciate that, because the terpenes are very important. And when I see a lab that doesn't provide that, yeah, there goes Gino. He's laughing at me right now.
I told you I was often toast all the time.
Yeah, he told you I was going to talk about it. When they don't have it on the results, I'm just like, man, I don't know. What are we missing here? Man, something's missing. I know you're not required, but what are we missing? So I appreciate
And go follow us on social media, Cristo Clear Analytics. You can see our updated pricing, all of that.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to tag y'all tomorrow on the episode and everything. We'll do collab posts and all that, and make sure people get the word out, because, people need to know that there's something in the area and everything. So we got another question. Is there usually a discrepancy in the advertised percentage in their results?
What's the question? Can you repeat the question?
He's asking, so from the results that you see at the store, like it says, this is 20%. Is there a discrepancy that's allowed, or a variance of, percentage of accuracy?
So there's definitely going to be some kind of variance.
Okay.
And depending on like the grower, there might be a large variance. So I already know that some growers are very meticulous. They want to have like make sure that all their product is always like that. So they're very good at self-sampling. Others aren't. So it just depends on how they are at self-sampling. And also what labs you use. Like we said earlier, like we can't actually tell what the true error should be. Like if somebody has a 22%, somebody else got a 25%, I mean, is that 3% with an error from each other, or is it not with an error? We don't know. But a lot of the time, some of the things that we've tested, we've seen that we've come pretty close on some products and pretty far on other products. And it just depends really, but we can tell that some places are really doing well and they are testing correctly and they are sampling correctly, because when we test their product, we get the number that they're saying, usually very closely. So again, is it with an error or not is a huge question that we as a state, and I think even I guess as a state haven't really answered.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point to make, and I think that's something that we need to bring up to the legislature eventually. Is we're going to have to either fund testing to figure out where to get this, or we're just going to have to figure it out eventually through just the regular testing that we do, and just hope to God people are taking notes and, like using scientific methods. So that way we can recall these, these methods and everything in the future if we do figure it out. And I hope we do, because, the testing is our first line of defense. And if our testing breaks down, then a lot of things break down, and then we start getting recalls, and then people lose money, and shit rolls down.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, but anyway, I want to thank you ladies so much. Today, actually, I said, we're going to do a shorter show, and we made it to the 40 minutes. And I want to thank you so much. Is there anything else that y'all want to maybe add before we leave for the day? And I know those of you watching, this is surprising because sometimes we go over an hour, but we're trying something a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit shorter of a show today. So, anything else y'all ladies want to say before we head out?
Thank you for the opportunity of having us on. We really enjoyed this, and you guys are welcome to come down and give you a tour. And we'd love to have you in-house to see our work firsthand. And if you ever want to do the podcast from our conference room down here, you can. We would like.
Okay. Road trip. We do those sometimes. So, maybe we will. That'd be fun. Or, maybe I'll do like a crib style kind of thing, like check out the facility.
Right. Take the camera out.
Yeah, you can be like, welcome to my facility. And, we can do it that way.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Laura, thank you so much for joining me as well. And, for your knowledge too. And, sharing it with people. I hope we educated a few people.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us on. It was enjoyable, and I'll probably be watching more of your show in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I wish y'all nothing but luck. And I look forward to that tour soon. And we'll do the MTV, crib style something or something like that.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay,
Thank you so much, ladies. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this week at Ask Chad Grassy Logic. We'll be back next week. Don't forget, this season ends October 15th. That's going to be our last episode until we have to wait for next year. So I'll see y'all next week. Y'all on Twitch, thank y'all so much for joining. Y'all had some great questions, so maybe we'll do this again next week. That was fun. All right, so I'll see you guys again next week. Shoots.
Thank you.